Okay, this person wants to know if you have taken your daughter shooting.
Actually, she did shoot with Walt Pruitt Cameo. I was out there taking a
Oh,
long range
really?
class, yes, and, I asked my husband and son if they wanted to take the class with me, with Adam and his Defenders USA team, and while we were up there shooting on the long range, Walt took Kiara to a bay with a .22 rifle, and she shot a little bit. The reason I don't take her to the range too often is because she's lost her vision, her hearing is super sensitive. She's
Mm.
like, who's the superhero? Wolverine? No, no, Daredevil. Daredevil. She's like Daredevil, so she can hear everything. I mean, when I unwrap a candy bar, like she's here before the dog is. Like she can hear everything. I can't talk about her because she's always like, "What were you saying?" You know, she hears it. So I have to be really protective of
Mhm.
her hearing because it's now her primary self-defense situational awareness tool. So that's why I don't bring her to the range very often. But she did shoot with
Mm.
Walt. She sent she sent a round down range and missed and then hit and then hit and then hit. And she was like, "Okay, I'm good." So she's been shooting.
Finish on a good note.
Mhm. Oh, Adam, you're
You're
muted.
muted.
So, Robyn, years ago, I had a guy who was legally blind. I mean, he truly couldn't see anything.
Mhm.
Legally blind. He came to a handgun course, and we ended up doing a private course. And his idea was that if they're in contact with me and I can feel that they're aggressive, they're violent, they're there to do bad damage to me, then I can therefore legally defend myself, and I can not only defend myself physically, but I can defend myself in the courts of law. And I
Mhm.
actually agreed with him. I'd never thought of it at the time. Ended up doing 2 full days of training with him, literally in a wheelchair, completely blind, and he did really well. Can I ask you, from your perspective, is that something that you see as a logical thing for somebody who's
Absolutely.
blind?
Absolutely. It's our Second Amendment right to protect ourselves, and her, if she was to use a firearm in self-defense, she would be legally, morally, ethically responsible for
Yes.
that round, just like I would, just like you would.
Yes.
So, yes, absolutely. It's and blindness is one of those things that it's on a continuum. So, Kiara is actually blind. She can see if the light is on or off in one eye. She can see a little bit of light, but she can't see anything. Whereas most people can see, you know, if they have peripheral vision or tunnel vision or not in the middle or a different levels of vision. So it's not up to the Constitution says you have the right to protect yourself. You know, your the right shall not be infringed. So it's not to say if you can see this distance or this ability or that's just not appropriate. The fact that we're all responsible for those rounds is what matters. And for her too, we kind of I know that we're running short on time, but
No, no, you're good. Go ahead.
I had never met anybody who was blind before ever my whole life. And one time I had been at the range and saw this guy come in with his white cane and we were at an indoor range and I was like, "Are you kidding me right now? Like what if there's a ricochet? What if there are you I was nervous about it. And I talked to a friend and yeah, it's his Second Amendment right. And I was like, "Okay, I'll chew on that for a little while." And then a few years later, we had a woman come to a Girl in the Gun. She was a Girl Gun member. She came to conference. She actually came to 3 different conferences. Her name is Melissa, and she's
Wow.
blind. She's in her 50s. She's been blind her whole life. She's from New
Wow.
York, and she wanted a way to defend herself. And she was an amazing shooter. She was very situationally aware. She knew exactly what was going on. She was a good listener. She was listening to the instructor and followed range commands very well. And all of my instructors that had her at conference said I would take a whole line of women like her. She was really attentive and very skilled. So it happened to be on the day that the doctors, when they did Kira's first surgery, they thought she might have a temporary vision loss. And about 2 months later, they were like, oh, this is not coming back ever.
Mm.
And that was a shock. We weren't prepared for that. And so the day that I got the diagnosis, the day that we met with the ophthalmologist, and I had been reading all these blogs and all these things online, and they said, you know, they don't want to say blindness. They just, you know, they'll use euphemisms. And so I just flat out asked, "Is this blindness?" And she said yes. And I went home and I'm like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? What does that mean? And that day, Melissa sent me an email and she said, "Hey, you've been on my mind, and I just wanted you to know I just got back from Cancun. I went on a scuba trip, and everybody could went to her. I could hear the coral hissing, and everyone was like, what did you feel?" And she's like, "I knew I could hear different sounds the coral was making." So the entire scuba group went back down to experience it her way. Just this whole thing about what a great trip she had. And I said, "It's crazy that you wrote me today. I just got this news." And she said, "I'm not a parent. and I'm not going to tell you what to do or offer you advice. And I said, please offer me advice. And she gave me the best advice as starting that journey and how to best advocate for Kiara for mobility and literacy, to make sure that she can have all the opportunities in the world. And had I not met her through A Girl and the Gun, had I not met her on the range, had she not emailed me that day, I mean, these are people that are placed in your life for a reason.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I know my daughter can do anything because I've seen other people do anything.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, when I got this guy who begged me for training, at first I kind of did the conventional wisdom of he's blind, don't train him. And then immediately thought like you did that he deserves defense as much, if not more, than anybody else.
Yes.
And who's going to become the victim of crime? Somebody who's less disabled than somebody who's more able. And so I trained him, and then almost for a while I kind of kept quiet about it, because when I would talk about it, it seemed like there was condemnation from so many of the training crowd.
Hmm.
Yet I'm thinking he needs it more than anybody else. And it became a thing to where if you have any disability whatsoever, I desperately want to train you, or somebody like me should find you and get the training into you. So it's interesting to hear a perspective, and I'm glad to think that we're walking the same path.
Yeah, we have a lot of blind shooters that whenever someone does something at the range that's really amazing or they want to be cheered on, I get
Yes.
a lot of emails talking about that, just because I do a lot of Braille advocacy and blindness advocacy. And we actually just had a member in one of our Houston chapters pass her LTC qual with a nearly perfect score, and everybody cheered for her. It's just really incredible. Like you said, especially their victimization rates are staggering. If you can't identify who's coming for you and you can't see them coming, I mean, we want everybody 21 feet away, and they don't know until someone's touching them, and that's 21 feet
Mhm.
close. So they need all the tools in their toolbox.
Amen.